and the widow of the victim ended up suing the carrier itself and the broker TQL, right?
Welcome to This Week in Trucking, the podcast that tells you what you need to know about the trucking market for the week. Today we're talking about diesel prices, where you should be looking for loads, trends in cargo theft, and also a story about TQL. Hey Groovier, how's it going?
It's hot everywhere these days.
Is your dad out on the road this week?
Nah, he's been home. His truck's in the shop. They can't figure out what's going on. It's some sort of light. And he eventually had to take it to a Kenworth dealership. So he's been just chilling at home and not working. But that's good too. He's just chilling at home.
Nice. A well-deserved break.
Yeah.
Guess what the national average diesel price is, the on-highway diesel fuel prices today?
$3.82.
You're so
382?
close.
Really?
And actually, this isn't fair. This number is from Monday, so it might be 382 today. It's 382.6, which if you round up, it's 383. So that was that on-highway diesel fuel price across the board in the country on Monday. That is down 4 cents from a week ago. So that was big news because diesel prices had been creeping upward the last 4 weeks, and now it's down by 4 cents. We're still up, actually, compared to last year, so we're 2 cents more expensive, unfortunately. But yeah, pretty much biggest drop in fuel prices was in the Midwest, followed by Gulf Coast and the Rocky Mountain states. Interestingly, diesel prices are 18 cents, or almost 18 cents, cheaper than what they were in the Rocky Mountain states last year. So if you're in Colorado or somewhere around Rocky Mountain states, you're feeling pretty good about diesel prices compared to what we were feeling like in July of last year.
Yeah, diesel prices have been fluctuating. I think we saw like a huge decrease, and now it started to go up. And now I think this week we saw like a small decrease as well. I think what was it, like a few cents. And I believe they're gonna continue to fluctuate around here, 4 cents up, 5 cents down, and I don't think they're gonna continue to go down much further. A couple of reasons was that because of the OPEC is cutting some production, and they have some production cuts. That has led to some increase. But overall, if you look at the EIA, the Energy Administration, they're projecting that the barrel will be at $89 for the second half, right? So right now it's at 84 roughly. In the second half, just a small increase. A couple of other things, there hasn't been like a huge growth in terms of diesel consumption in the US. I think we're averaging like 1.3% a year growth in 2024, but the supply has increased just because the US is drilling more. So all these things lead to prices being somewhat stable and somewhat down from earlier this year. So these are all really good things. Obviously, election year this year, and let's see where gas prices go. Gas price is one of those things that every election year people becomes a topic, right? Hey, how expensive is gas, right?
So where are we with the freight market today? What can you tell us on a national scale, Gerber?
Yeah, so let's look at some data first. So in July, we're averaging for dry van $2.09. In June, it was $2.06. So obviously, there's an increase in dry van rates. If you look at flatbed was $2.51 in June. In July, we're at $2.52. So just a small increase. I would just call it flatlining, honestly. And then reefer rates went up by 3 cents. So in June, we were at $2.44 per mile. In July, we're at $2.47. Obviously, pre-July 4th, around that time, we usually see a surge in rates. Even though the market was seasonally adjusting and we saw like the spike in rates and stuff, and the market has come down post-holiday, I don't think it's come down that much. Overall, we're still above 2019 numbers and last year. So, but we just haven't seen a big drop, right? So in other words, rates are up in July, but they're not up too much and they're staying steady. The national averages remain above June averages, technically, right? Rejection rate has come down a little bit. So we finally crossed 6% towards the end of June and beginning of July. We've come down, I think, under 6% since then, just because of seasonal adjustments. But we finally hit over 6% this year, which is really good. And end of July, usually the freight market is going to cool down a little bit. And also the most important thing, the spread between contract and spot freight is reducing, right? So that's a really good thing. So we want to see rejection rate go up, which means the market is tightening. And we want to see that spread come down, which means the next phase of a carrier market is going to begin at some point. So I think we're just getting closer and closer. Again, freight market predictions are very tough. Nobody can tell exactly what month and what week we're going to see an inflection. But I think all these are positive signs. We're not there yet, but I think we're seeing some positive signs that we're getting closer and closer. So let's see how this year pans out. I think we'll be much closer towards the end of the year. Hopefully the market turns around like by November, December, right? So let's see. I think most of the changes that we're seeing in the market, like the rate, like improvements and rates coming up, it's just because of capacity being exited. It's not because the manufacturing activity is increasing or loads are significantly increasing in the market. So I just want to be very clear about that. It's mostly because of all the capacity that has left. And that's another mechanism how we can get to supply and demand. If you look at the manufacturing index, it's not still in a very good spot. We're still contracting. I think the rating in manufacturing rating in June was like 48.5, I believe, which means we're still contracting. We want to see that number go to 50 or above. Just as an example, during the COVID boom, that number was closer to 60. So once you start to see that number go to 50, 51, 52, 53, that means there's actually the loads are increasing in the market, which means, look, with the tight capacity already, you're going to see the markets turn. Obviously, the hurricane season is really active. Let's see what happens there. I think the last hurricane that hit Houston did not have much of an impact. But these are all the variables that could really just turn the freight market around in the next 6 months. Let's see what happens.
Yeah, and I think if you're listening to this and you're sitting in California versus sitting in Oregon versus sitting in Florida, you're going to be thinking, wow, really rates are that because I'm seeing X, right? So we wanted to start looking at some of the different variations in region and state in the different markets and see what's most profitable, what's least profitable, where do you want to avoid, where would you want to book loads today. So we're going to take a look at the spotter index. I'm going to share my screen and show what that looks like. But can you tell us a little bit about spotter and what we're seeing here, what the spotter index actually measures?
Yeah, huge shout out to Spotter. So what Spotter is doing, and we're getting some of our data from Spotter, is that, and by the way, look at them if you're interested in leasing on to a trucking company. But essentially, what Spotter does is that it breaks down all the freight markets in the US and it looks at the load board data and see, hey, where are the rates increasing? So the rates that are being posted on load boards, are those going up or down? And as those go up in certain areas, a Spotter essentially ranks the freight markets in different areas. So if you're looking at a dry-van market today, you're seeing that Tucson, San Diego, California, Ontario, Los Angeles, Fresno, California, all the West Coast states are really hot for dry-van this week and today. And by the way, this changes on a daily basis and a weekly basis. And Saginaw, Michigan is pretty up there in the top 10 state markets. And then Missouri is pretty good, in Evansville, Indiana. So I would say if you're on the West Coast, I think any outbound load out of there is really good. And then the Midwest is really hard as well. But yeah, that's what the Spotter index tells us.
Yeah, let's take a look at some of these numbers for reefer as well.
Yeah, I think reefer markets might be a little different, but very similar. So yeah, let's look at the reefer.
Yeah, you can see South Dakota, Sioux Falls, pretty red hot. Flagstaff, Arizona, all of California again, Las Vegas, Twin Falls, Idaho. So a lot hotter here in the Midwest too, but more west of the Midwest, let's say. So Kansas and Nebraska, Kansas City, Missouri.
Yeah, Duluth, Minnesota's hot.
All of Western
Fargo,
Texas
North Dakota.
too.
Yeah, I
El
think
Paso,
again,
Lubbock, Amarillo.
Yeah, I think I would say use this data to make decisions, informed decisions. Go to those areas that are hot. The best way to make money is you stay within those orange, red, and yellow areas, right? That's how you make the best mile per gallon, per mile, rate per mile. So yeah.
But if you got a flatbed, it's a different story.
Yeah.
So
for flatbed, I think things are
Midwest and South.
Yeah.
Mississippi, Louisiana, East Texas, Saginaw, Michigan is also a hot market, but Indiana, Missouri, Tennessee. Yeah.
And avoid all the blue areas, right? So blue means cold, and red means hot. So you want to be able to stay in the hot areas as much as possible. I would say if you're very flexible and you can go anywhere, definitely use this map to make those decisions like, hey, look, today I'm going to go to Tennessee or Missouri or Arkansas if I have reefers. And I would say these are really, like, making informed decisions is really critical, and it can make a difference of $1,000 to $4,000 each month, right? Or are you getting the best rate? Don't stick to those same routes that you're used to, just because unless you have a dedicated freight, right? if you're flexible, and I would say change it up a little bit, go to hot markets. It makes a huge difference.
Yeah, definitely. I always feel bad for the guys up in Maine. Man, trucking
It's
out of
always
Maine.
cold. That's why you get a really good rate going into the cold areas. And that's another thing
Right,
this map will tell you. If you go
right.
to Florida right now, you're probably going to get a good rate going into Florida, going
Because
into
there's
Maine,
nothing
and all
coming
those
out.
areas, but there's nothing coming out. Yeah. This basically this index is based off of origin of freight, not inbounds. So the
Right.
states tell you where's the hottest freight coming out of.
Yep. Yeah, so that's a good point. This is a map of the areas where you should stay in, right? It's best to stay in this area. If you're a flatbed, that means Midwest and South. If you're drive-in or reefer, that means Midwest or West Coast right now. But yeah, you don't want to get stuck in a really cold market because even if you get a good rate going there, you might not get anything coming out.
Yeah. Yeah, no, totally. So yeah, this is the hot market. Say we'll be sharing this on a weekly basis so that our carriers and our customers and all the listeners, you get like this informed map of where you should be going. And hopefully this is very helpful for you guys and you guys can make decisions off of this.
We're also going to be publishing this every week on Monday on our blog. So go there, subscribe to our blog, and we're going to be publishing that out every week. Something else I want to talk about is cargo theft. So there was an article that came out that gave me a little bit of hope that cargo theft activity is down from Q1. So in Q2, we had less than we had in Q1. Fortunately, it's still up from Q2 last year. Cargo theft is still up. CargoNet recorded 771 theft incidents in Q2. That's a 33% increase from the same time period last year, but a 10% decrease from Q1 of this year. Organized cargo theft groups in Southern California have been more selective, they say. Targeting high-value freight like motor oil and electronics is less frequent now, and there's more targeting of things like vitamins, supplements, alcoholic beverages, and over-the-counter skincare products in Q2 compared to Q1. There's a decrease in theft of vehicle accessories, footwear, and consumer electronics. And still, you're seeing the highest theft activity in California, Texas, and Illinois, although there's a lot of trucking in those states. So I just wonder, is this sort of weighted by the amount of the trucking industry that exists in those states? They're pretty huge states, California and Texas. But there were a significant reduction in theft activity in some of the top counties. So Los Angeles, San Bernardino, Riverside, Cook, Illinois, Dallas, Texas. So those are good signs, hoping that this is creating a safer environment for truck drivers because it can pose not only really terrible risks for people losing their product, but also people getting into dangerous situations where they're having their truck compromised.
Yeah,
So
and I would say the drivers definitely be careful where you parking your trucks. Holiday season is always, once it's the
yeah,
cargo theft heaven for a lot of these people. Everybody's off, everybody's at their home, and the trucks are loaded and they're sitting at random parking lots. Or so just want to make sure that all the drivers, owner operators, make sure don't get a claim and make sure that your parking spots are secured and make sure that you're taking every step to secure your freight, right?
yeah.
You just don't want to be a victim of any of these things because sure, there's a small decrease, but these things can go up at any time. So yeah, take control of your own freight and make sure that you're taking all the precautions possible.
Yeah, take control, take care, and just know that theft and fraud is rampant in this industry. So if you are a carrier, unfortunately, you really have to prove yourself for a broker or a customer to take your business seriously. And there are different ways that you
100%.
can do that. We talked to Dale Prax this week, recorded an episode with him, so that'll be out pretty soon. He gave a lot of good insights about theft and fraud in the industry, that this really marginalizes those new carriers coming out because now brokers are saying, oh, they've only been in business for 3 months, so I'm not going to work with them. But that could be
Yeah.
someone who has 30 years of driving experience. Who knows? They could be, or 20 years, they could have decades under their belt as a really reliable driver or owner operator that's just never worked under their own MC. So that's really, he was saying, that's really unfair to just group together all new carriers and say that they're no good, that you're not going to work with them. Instead, you should be doing a thorough vetting process and setting up your business to be vetted. So
Yeah.
that's just some thoughts of what made me think about my conversation with Dale.
Yeah, no, I think those things are definitely important. As the freight market tightens, you're gonna see a lot of those brokers work with new MCs and they'll figure that out. Okay, how can we vet a good carrier from a bad one. But right now, capacity is loose. Brokers are still able to find trucks fairly easily, right? So they can easily segment out the new MCs, right? But you see those tables turn very quickly when the freight market becomes tight. All those brokers out there that would say, "Hey, we require a 3-month MC or 6 months," those also tend to loosen up. So hopefully, as the freight market tightens up, and we've been over 2 years of this recessionary period, hopefully that helps a little bit too. But saying that, you should always be making sure that you're getting those inspections, make your company look legitimate, right? Use the macro point, do all those things. At the end of the day, it's all about relationships and doing a good job in this business.
Yeah, definitely. You had some news about TQL. What did you want to share with us?
Yeah, so similar to claims, generally we would see this that brokers would get sued when there was a accident with one of their carriers that they had hired to deliver a shipment. And there was a lot of conversation that would go around in the industry. Are brokers really liable if one of their contracted carriers get into an accident? So this is good news for brokers, where specifically TQL, where the 11th Circuit Court of Appeals ruled that TQL, which is a 3PL, we all know who TQL is, right? Is not liable for a fatal accident involving a carrier that they hired, right? So what happened was there was an accident in 2020 in Georgia, and where a truck driver, for hard to stop, made a negligent U-turn essentially, and which caused a fatal collision. And the widow of the victim ended up suing the carrier itself and the broker TQL, right? So the court determined that, hey, TQL is not responsible for that. So this is a good thing for brokers. I think this was always up for question whether brokers are responsible, and I think some instances some brokers may have been held responsible for something like this. I personally think brokers are not. This is something that should go on a carrier, because brokers just hired the trucking carrier to deliver the load, and they have absolutely no control over the safety, right? A carrier decides to run, has full control over how they run their business, right? So I don't think the liability should fall over the broker, but this is a good thing for a lot of the brokers in the industry.
Yeah, I don't know. I think I'm going to have to disagree with you on that one, because I think that there are some situations where a broker might be at fault or negligent and causing an unsafe situation.
100%, like, yeah, that's a good
So
point.
think about pressuring someone who's been detained, at a dock for 5 hours, 6 hours, and then they're rushing to get to their next load because they've got a family to feed and they've
Yeah,
got bills to pay, and something really tragic happens, right? Who is benefiting from that driver being unsafe,
yeah,
or taking that risk? So it seems the broker is getting all the benefit from some of that unsafe activity of getting in on time and taking risks to do that, and not having to take any of the responsibility for when things go wrong. So I don't know. I think that there's a gray area. There's probably some situations where they really shouldn't be liable, and there's other situations where maybe they have some responsibility to pay.
yeah. I think that's a good point. I think in some cases, if brokers are pressuring carriers and they're going to get fined, because brokers tend to fine for every little thing, not using macro point and not being on time. And in those cases, definitely the broker is liable. That's why you should have written communication emails, right? Hey, I won't be able to deliver this because of XYZ. And it is definitely situation to situation. But in those cases, yeah, I think the broker is liable if they're pushing and they're telling the carrier that they're going to fine them or this or that. But in those situations, I think carriers should definitely be careful and get all those things in writing from the broker.
Yeah. Yeah, definitely. Evidence is key there.
Yep.
So we have a comment from a listener, Trapper Aaron, who was watching our videos about electric trucks, hybrid trucks, and said Edison Motors out of Canada is making huge improvements in hybrid trucking. They're up in Alberta and making logging trucks using its harshest conditions commonly found in trucking. This is a really interesting comment to me, because we had said that a lot of the electric truck testing is happening in places like Texas and California, where conditions are usually pretty good for trucking. You don't have icy roads. And so I looked into this company, really cool company, Edison Motors, founded by two guys after graduating from college. They started their trucking business, reminded me a little bit of you, Gurveer. But they started their trucking business with a 1969 Kenworth 5-axle logging truck. They were hauling logs in British Columbia, mining equipment in the Yukon. So really heavy duty, heavy industry stuff. And they were adding more trucks, but they were frustrated by the serviceability of the newer trucks. So they decided to start rebuilding old trucks and using those. They expanded their business to designing, hauling, and installing off-grid solar hybrid power systems. And then they converted that knowledge into designing a diesel electric truck tailored to logging and heavy hauling. So really cool company. Check them out at edisonmotors.ca. We'll leave the link in the description. And thank you, Aaron, for commenting and letting us know about that company.
That's really cool. I just visited their website as you were talking, and by the way, the trucks look really cool, and
They
I can
look
see how
sweet. Like they're really
yeah, they look
unique
very
looking
different and
too.
unique. Yeah, that's a really good idea that they're taking like the older trucks and converting them rather than building something from scratch. And this is an interesting space. I think we're definitely going to see a lot of innovation, a lot of different ideas. Like, hey, usage of existing bodies and working with the existing manufacturer and putting some sort of additional equipment on top, or taking existing trucks and converting them. I think we're going to see some interesting innovations in this space, or building something from scratch. But this is a really interesting space. Let's see how this changes trucking in the next few years. But a cool company for sure.
Yeah, definitely. And hopefully we will get heard by one of those founders of Edison Motors. We would love to have you on the podcast. So write to us at hello@bobtail.com. And if you have any questions or comments about the industry, it's funny, I just got a comment on one of the videos. Has she even driven a truck before? She doesn't know what she's talking about. And my response to that is, hey, that's why I'm asking. If you have any comments or you think that you want to share your thoughts, write to us at hello@bobtail.com. I monitor that email address on a daily basis and would love to hear from our listeners, whether or not you think I should be in front of the microphone.
Awesome. Thank you so much, everyone. And hopefully you guys like this week's episode, and drive safe, be safe out there, and stay cool. It's hot everywhere these days. So yeah, thank you so much.
Definitely. Have a good one.